Greetings, dear viewers. Welcome to the live conversation on ALLATRA TV on the topic of creative society, where we have our daily live broadcasts and interviews with people from all over the world, and where we ask our guests what kind of society they would like to live in. Creative Society is a worldwide project of ALLATRA International Public Movement, and it concerns everyone. So my name is Christina, hello, and my co-host for today is Eugene from New Zealand, this is his first time as being a co-host. So Eugene, hello, how are you doing?
Hi, Christina, and yes, I'm doing very good. Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. Let me introduce today's guest for us. His name is Brendan Rodgers. He's from Australia. Brendan is a leadership and team performance coach. He's called the People Fixer. Believe me, we're going to drill down into that and figure out what that really means. And he's also a host of the Culture of Things podcast, which I've got on my podcast list to start listening to find out more about. So, Brendan, a warm welcome to the ALLATRA TV. Did I say that right, Christina? ALLATRA?
ALLATRA, yes.
There we go. And thank you for joining us, Brendan.
My pleasure, Eugene. Thank you, and Christina.
Great. Hey, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Brendan? Like, how did you get started? What motivates you to get up every morning and carry on doing what you're doing?
Yeah, of course, Eugene. Thank you very much for that. Look, it really goes back to when I was 24. I'm now 45, so a bit over 20 years ago, and I started leading a team of people in a large organization. It was a team of 12 people, so it was quite a large team. And I'd been involved in semi-professional sport, football, soccer, and led teams at quite a young age in that semi-professional environment. So I learned a bit about teamwork and leadership in sport, but I was pretty lost in the organizational space. So I led that team, and I made some good decisions and I made some very poor decisions over that time. And really, because I felt I was quite self-reliant and really seeking learning, I really started to focus on my own development as a leader. I had some people around me that supported me, but it was really tough times, to be honest, because I knew my team wasn't that happy with my style of leadership and who I was, and I was struggling as a leader. And really fast forward that to back to 2015, really. To 2015 when I left the corporate space, and I always wanted to create environments for leaders and teams where they didn't have to go through that pain, and that's what drives me every single day. I love working with leaders, I love working with teams, I love working with business owners and just helping them improve themselves as leaders. But most importantly, my greater purpose is just helping improve the lives of people at work, because I know that I struggled at times when I was leading people, and that meant my work experience wasn't as great as it could have been. And I don't want people to go through that same experience. Unfortunately, we're talking about pandemics now, and I very much believe that, if coronavirus is classified as a pandemic, well, the amount of leadership or poor leadership in the world is also a pandemic, because there's very few true great leaders out there. And that's why the engagement level in the global workforce is so low.
So, Brendan, what is your definition of leadership?
My definition of leadership is really, it's a great question, actually. As far as definition, I wouldn't say a definition. I would say it's more an action for me. And leadership, first and foremost, and purely for me, is about, if you go in as a serving of others, and all of your actions support serving others and putting others first ahead of yourself, then that to me is a great foundation of being a true leader. I think one of the things that underpins that, which is a trait that gets talked about a lot but probably is misunderstood, is that word humility. And to have humility really means that you do put others first. You make decisions for the good of the team as opposed to what's best for me. You're open about your own strengths, and you're confident about your own strengths, but you're also very clear on your own weaknesses. and what they are, and how you can help bring other people around you to help complement or improve your own weaknesses. So it's really through those actions and that level of humility and service that you can get the best out of people within your team, and to bring them together as a team to work for a common cause and achieve success in a common goal.
So can anyone lead?
Absolutely. I believe that anybody can lead. More the question is, should everyone lead? And I think the answer to that is no. Again, going back to that point, I said that there's lots of people out there that are leading, and they want to be leaders. They want to be leaders of teams. They want to have those positions, but do they really have the mindset and the virtues and the character traits to truly be an effective leader and look at others first? That not everyone has that. Therefore, my opinion is that not everyone should be a leader.
So is it leadership then? Is it a skill, or is it a characteristic or a value that you develop?
I believe that leadership can be learned. Now, there are certain traits, and again, I harp on this because it's so important. Humility. Humility is a very, very difficult trait to learn. It's not that you have it or you don't, but inbred in you. You are making decisions certain times, and you are often you may be putting yourself first, and that's check yourself. And if you've got someone to help you be accountable for that, then maybe you can help change your mindset. But as far as fundamental skills in leadership, I mean, some of the things that I talk a lot about and work with my clients around is, there's a fundamental basis or foundation of leadership is really around this self-awareness piece. So being self-aware, understanding those strengths and weaknesses, and being open to feedback to help you become more self-aware is a really important area. Building relationships, you have to have solid professional relationships with people. If you don't have those, again, you don't have a really good foundation for leadership and to help people become the best that they can be. A part of that as well, particularly when you're leading teams, alignment comes into it. How do you get everyone in the team aligned to achieve something, to work together? Yeah, sure, they have different roles in the team, potentially, but they still bring a certain skill set and a certain weaknesses that are within the team that we need to work with to try and get the best out of people, so we're working towards a common goal. There's also discipline around, we talk a lot about meetings, team disciplines. Meetings are a really powerful area for leaders and should be a very powerful area for leaders to, a real room and an opportunity for common ideas to get the best outcomes and the solutions. Above all, the thing that really is the icing on the cake is, unfortunately, a lot of leaders are not that comfortable and aware of coaching, because going back to what I said much earlier, leaders really need to be serving people, and that is really focused on helping people become better and improving them. Well, that's coaching. So as a leader, if you can't get your head around coaching and understand some basic principles around coaching and how you can set people up to challenge themselves and to succeed, then once again, you're really failing in some of the critical aspects of leadership, in my opinion.
I was reading through your website, and I was taken with the 4 simple but very essential, I call them areas of work, which was building a cohesive leadership team, creating clarity, over communicating clarity, and then reinforcing clarity. And so when I looked at that, I thought there's a very common theme, which was obviously clarity. Can I just go inside that for a minute and ask you, over your 20 years, what values, or what 3 values have you actually embraced as non-negotiable for your personal life and your business, and that you believe that they are universal enough that creative society could actually still see themselves reflected in a healthy way inside these values?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, this is something that I've, in my own journey of leadership, have searched far and wide. And it's only in the last 4 to 5 years where coming across the work of Patrick Lencioni. Actually, I'm very much a disciple of his work. I love what he does, and we were talking off air, very simple, very powerful, very effective. And when I look at some of the things that Lencioni has said, and this is straight out of one of his books called The Ideal Team Player, when I've looked at my own journey, looked at me as a person, looked at me working and leading sporting teams and being in sporting teams, but also being in organizational teams, there are three things that Lencioni absolutely nailed. So these aren't my words, these are his, but they just are globally applicable in anything that you do. So the first one is that word humility. Again, I talk about that is really a foundation. So a leader and a team player needs to have a level of humility. Okay. Yes. Now, again, just to explain that a little bit more, that humility, most people look at that from a braggy, egotistical perspective if you don't have humility. But the other thing we need to be really clear of is that as a leader and as a person in a team, contributing to a team, you don't want to violate humility as well, which means that you don't understand your strengths and how you can contribute best to the team, and also be open to around your weaknesses. So if you're really not confident around what you're good at in a team, then how can you contribute effectively? And that is a violation of humility. Yep. The other key part is work ethic. Now, let's face it, when people are in teams and leaders, we want people to work hard, whether that's on the sporting field, whether that's in the organizational field, whether it's in a boardroom or whatever. Now, I'm not saying that people in organizations need to be working from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night every day. That's just not sustainable. But when they're working, they enjoy their work, they're hungry to improve, they're hungry to learn, they're focused very much on continuous improvement. That's a really powerful attribute to have for a person in a team and for a leader. And the other part, which is, and all of these work together, not one in isolation. The other final piece of that puzzle is the people smart, emotional intelligence part. So just having some common sense around people. I think there's leaders out there that may have a level of humility that is satisfactory. People may have a reasonable amount of work ethic as well, but if they're not very smart around people, they're going to upset people, and people aren't going to want to work with them. They're not going to want to be led by them. So if you can't understand people, if you can't understand how they work best, if you can't preempt to some extent how people may react in a certain situation, and also understand how your words, how your behaviors may impact on others, then how can you possibly get the best out of the people that you're working with? It's just not possible.
Yep. So we talk about culture a lot in our game. You and I are both kind of in the same industry, so to speak, in the Southern Hemisphere, and we use the word culture. It's bandied around quite a bit, and often as a throwaway line. I actually take culture very seriously. I believe it is an essential element to a healthy, and to borrow from Pat Lencioni, a healthy and smart organization. You help transform office culture, if I understand it right, from everything I've read about you. And Christina and I have had some conversations in preparing for this, and we both agree that culture, office culture, is really an important part of having healthy businesses all over the world and having a healthy creative society that grows from the inside out, which makes a really healthy operations. But how do you change culture in a society? I know it's easy to do inside an organization, or easier to do inside a contained organization. But when you have society which is without walls, how do you bring about a culture change?
Yeah, once again, a really interesting question. And if you take the foundations of a team to start with, so a society is a form of team, isn't it? Now, what you have to first put out there is some purpose. Why should people get behind this thing, get involved in this society, get involved in this team? And that all starts with that purpose. Simon Sinek's work is obviously very famous around that why. Why do we exist? Why do we do something? As I said earlier, my purpose is really around helping to improve the lives of people at work. There's many ways I can do that, But if people are sort of aligned with that, then they're probably going to have a bit more interest in what I'm about and what I do, and similar to your work. So that to me is the first part of the whole process. If we get some of that, and what we have to be very cognizant of is that that also means that there are some people that won't get behind this, and that's okay, because you don't want people who don't believe in the purpose. That's not going to help build the culture that you want to build. Okay, so that's the first point. The second point I would make, which is also critical, is once again, very similar to an organization or a sporting team or a society, is what is that baseline of behavioral expectation that's acceptable? Because really, to nut culture down to a very simple statement, it's really behavior that we accept and behavior we don't accept. Now, we need to know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So I know through some of the information I've been passed and read about ALLATRA TV, there's 8 foundations, and these are quite broad areas. So everyone can resonate and relate to those sorts of things. Well, that is part of the culture that you're building. And I know when I had some meetings earlier, people in your organization are talking about those things. So they're coming through in your language. People can understand, and they get an opportunity to clarify what those things are. So that communication and the regular communication involved in sharing those values, those behaviors, those beliefs are very, very important. And once again, it's like another filter. It allows people, even if they believe in the purpose of the organization and the society, then there maybe their alignment in the value set is not quite right. So that still may mean that it's not quite right for them.
Yeah, yeah. So we want to move from a mindset of consumerism to a mindset of collaboration, which is where the creative society actually collaborate together. So that mind shift or that culture change, and you, just to maybe repeat or restate what you've just said in a succinct sentence, but that shift from a consumerism or consumer mindset to a collaboration mindset, what's the core value? What do we need to plant and then foster and grow culturally in society?
It is absolutely one word, and that word is humility. As I've said many times tonight, if you think about leaders today, and that humility factor is just so important in everything we do. Unfortunately, so many people seem to make decisions for their own good as opposed to the good of the greater being. And and even our society generally, and some of the things you guys talk about and working and fighting against and moving against, is that that consumer is all about the individual. And again, I'm not saying that that's a completely bad thing, but in certain situations, again, in a leadership situation, the space I work, if I'm leading a team and I'm making decisions, and those decisions are because they benefit me more than they benefit my team, then that's good for me, but it's not good for anybody else in the team. And it certainly doesn't set a foundation of leadership, and it certainly doesn't set a foundation of trust for anybody in the team to think that I'm ever going to make decisions that are for the betterment of the team and for the progress of the whole team moving forward. That humility factor is absolutely critical.
Yeah, good. I'm just going to hand over to Christina. Just before I do, when I had my interview and I was asked by Kate and by Christina, my core theme was very similar to yours. Mine, when I took from Dr. Stephen Covey, which I think he took from a Chinese somewhere at some stage, which was seek first to understand, then seek to be understood. And if we could just get that principle of humility and seeking to understand, and we just build on that, we can change society. So that's just, I am agreeing with you 100%. Christina, I've taken about 18 minutes here, a lot longer than what we planned, but I found it most fascinating. I'll let you have a chat now.
Yeah, I like the way, I mean, well done, Eugene. You're doing really good job and asking wonderful questions. So I'm just like, enjoying my time here and watching you two having a nice conversation. I mean, lovely. Well done, guys. So yeah, and now I would like to move on to the second part of our interview. So at the beginning, we mentioned that on the platform of ALLATRA International Public Movement, the unique global project has been launched. The goal of the project is to build by peaceful means a creative society free from the system of consumerist mindsets, as Eugene said, and to create together the future that humanity deserves. So our goal is to ask the whole of humanity how they envision creative society. And we would like to ask you the same question. So what is your vision of creative society where you, your loved ones, and all people on earth would live happily and prosperously? And what values should prevail in such a society?
Thanks, Christina. And look, I've got to go back to what I mentioned before about my own purpose. I'm a big believer in that. If I can help and do my little bit for society about improving the lives of people at work, then that's a great thing. If you think about the amount of time that we all spent at work, that we all need to spend at work, the way the society is today, we all need a level of income and things like that to survive and to feel comfortable and to feel safe. Which is one of the values of creative society. Then if people are feeling better about their work, they're feeling better about their leaders, they're feeling happier in the workforce, then even if you just think about that from an analytical point of view, and for some of the listeners that think about that from that perspective, that if we said, based on some of the reports out there, that 87% of the global population are not engaged in their work, so they're not performing at their best, they're sort of turning up, doing what they need to do and going home. Well, even if we just impacted on that by even just a few percent, imagine the level of productivity changes that happens in the world. The impact that has on people's environments, the impact that has on people achieving more for themselves and for their organizations. It just, 1 or 2% would change the landscape. And I know, again, as I said before, a really big disciple of Lencioni's work and a few other people, there's not enough people in this space to really help drive that home and really to help leaders see that, I've been a leader, I've done really poor things, made bad decisions, but we can do things together to change that and to make it much better for people. And if people are going to a workplace that they enjoy being and they're engaged, then surely they're going to come home in a much happier state, which also helps their home life and their personal life.
So the leader should take the responsibility and not to be afraid, to admit the mistakes. So to admit that, hey guys, I don't know how to do this or that. So let's, put the heads together and come up with the idea. So, not to be afraid to speak up and, to work collectively. So, yeah, I
absolutely
agree with
absolutely. That. And I think what I would just say too in that, Christina, is that there's, yes, in organizations and the space that I play a lot in, is that there is an expectation on the leaders because, hey, you're the leader and supposedly to set the standard. Now, that's very much true. The leader needs to set the standard. But I think as everyday people in society, and irrespective of what level of an organization you are in or volunteer organization or whatever, everyone needs to have some courage around having the right types of conversations. Because I'm also a big believer that, leaders or any of us don't wake up in the morning and say, hey, I can't wait to do a bad job today. I just don't think people think like that and say that. So if that's the case, then even if our leader is maybe not as good as what you'd like him or her to be, then have you ever given them feedback? Have you ever asked, said to them, look, it takes courage, but hey, when you do this, this is how it impacts me. And I think that if you maybe, just my opinion, but if you change this, I think that would really improve your leadership style. Now, again, that's a courageous thing to do, but that's where I think all of us need to take some responsibility. In my career, there's been times when I've had those conversations, and there's also been times when I've not been courageous and not had those conversations. And every one of those times, I regret not having the conversation. So be courageous. Everyone takes some responsibility and takes action to improve each and every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Good. On the Allatraunites, I cannot get my tongue around that word all the time. But on our websites, there's an article that's called Foundations and Stages for Building the Creative Society. And it's been published. And Kate's going to put it up for us now. So this article actually describes how our humanity can get out of this, what we call dead-end consumer society. And after conducting thousands of interviews and people all over the world, the 8 foundations of creative society were formed. Now, these foundations are based on the answers and on the needs of the people that they talk to. Brendan, I know you've kind of had a look at them. You've probably had a read of them. I'm curious, is there one particular of these 8 that you believe is the quintessential? It is the DNA of what we actually need to start working on, or it will lead to the changes that we're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely, Eugene. I think the one that most resonated with me was number 2, the human freedom side of things, and it goes back to something you mentioned as well. But really today, that seek to understand. You use Stephen Covey's words.
Yeah.
I'm very much of the view, and it's very something I find very, very challenging in my own development is be less judgmental and more curious. So it's exactly the same as what you're saying of Stephen Covey, and that's a very, very difficult thing to do yourself. But so I'm always checking myself in that, and maybe I've made a statement, and okay, no, hold on, I need to be curious about why would they have said that, or why would they be acting in that way, as opposed to just judging someone.
Yeah.
So that to me, linking to the human freedom aspect, then it's really the ability for people to understand, to be curious. We all look at the world through a different lens, and when we're more open around that, we can have far more beneficial conversations and conflict around ideas rather than around personalities, because we all know that that old saying, 2 heads are better than one. Even if we're coming from really opposing views, if we both come from that perspective of wanting to understand each other's perspective, and if we know that, look, we all want the same outcome, whatever that purpose is, but we may take a slightly different angle to get there, understanding that, working within it, then maybe actually that place in the middle is the best way to move forward. And again, once again, coming back to humility, that takes a level of humility from all partners to say, well, hey, you know what? Just maybe my idea is not the best idea in this way that we go forward.
Yeah.
So for me, number 2, human freedom, I think embodies that.
Yeah, really good. Christina, you want to throw something in on that one?
No, I mean, Brandon explains things so well, so I'm glad that I didn't even have the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good. So I think it was Gandhi who said, be the change that you want to see in the world. And I think that the key to looking at our 8 foundations of our 8 is actually to model them, not talk about them, not do the finger pointing, but be the hand held out. And there's a huge difference in the way you feel when you do that versus that. And so when you be the example and be the model, it's like what you're saying. It starts with humility. And I love that as a core value. I believe if we can just first, we actually will find true leadership out of position. That what do you think about that, Brendan?
Sorry, so I'm just going to piece it. You did break up a little bit, but just that, again, that word humility you mentioned, and just absolutely, if I've heard and pieced it together, that core bit of humility is absolutely critical. Again, we can't underestimate the simplicity of it, but the power of it, but also the challenges that we all face with that. I'm meeting with people each and every day and working with different individuals, and even the podcasts I run and some other events I'm involved in, every single day we are challenged with our own humility. But like I said, around some of those challenges with leadership, one of those fundamental challenges that leaders have to overcome is that self-awareness and be very self-aware. So as we know, with that change, be the change in the world. Well, the change always starts with the self. And in order to change ourselves, we got to be self-aware that we need to change. We've got to be self-aware that we've maybe said something, or we've maybe been less humble than what we could have been, and we need to check ourselves. None of us are perfect. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to be not humble at certain times. But As long as we're aware about it, we have self-awareness, and we choose to do something about it in a positive way, not stay down the negative path, then we can make huge steps forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And creating a healthy society is an inside-out job. And it's very personal. Starts with self. So well said, Brendan. Well said. Christina, yours.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brendan. You're a true coach. I mean, I'm just, sitting and
pleasure.
enjoying this. Thank you very much. And,
Pleasure, Christina.
coming back to those 8 foundations, in order to implement them, those 8 foundations of creative society in the shortest possible time, there are 3 stages of building the creative society. So the first stage is the information stage, where we inform humanity of the creative society. And we're using the rule of 6 handshakes, which says that we're all connected through 6 or even less social connections. That's why the unification of all people is more than possible now because of the internet and all these social media that we have. And Brendan, we always ask our guests who would they like to nominate and to pass on this chain, this initiative further. So the same question goes to you. Who would you like to see and invite to our next live broadcast?
Yeah, thank you, Christina. And again, look, I'm really, really fortunate in my life to have some fantastic people around me and fantastic people in networks. So it's really hard to choose one, but I think asking you off air around a little bit of diversity and stuff in what you guys are looking for, and variation for listeners. Look, there is a really good friend of mine that I've done a lot of work with now for a long time, and his name's Mark Schreck, and he's a Google Street photographer virtual tour, but he's probably one of the people in my life that knows a lot about a lot of stuff. And the stuff that he knows, I just shake my head and think, where would you ever find out about this stuff? So he's a very, very well-educated person. He's very knowledgeable. He reads all sorts of crazy stuff, listens to all sorts of crazy stuff. And I think he could add enormous value to your listeners.
Thank you. We are very much looking forward to see him on our show. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So, yeah, Eugene, would you like to ask before we go to the end something else?
I think I think I just have one final question here for you, mate. What's the one thing that you really wish we would grab a hold of and that you want to share? It's the final words as we know, usually the last thing, the icing on the cake that you want our viewers to actually hear, embrace, own, and walk away with. And I have a funny suspicion I know what it is, but I want to hear you say it.
Look, I hope I meet your suspicion, but I think for me, it goes back to that point we made earlier around that change starts with ourselves. And if we can really focus on ourselves, and not everyone wants to be a leader. Not everyone wants to lead teams, but you still need to be a value contributor to a team, whether that's your work team, your volunteer team, your family team, the creative society team. There's so much that each and every one of us can contribute if we've got the right mindset about. But again, the mindset starts with us. It always starts with us. What can we do today that's a little bit better than yesterday? What can we do tomorrow that's a little bit better about ourselves? And again, a lot of this for me is not necessarily about the technical level of knowledge that we have. For me, it's very much the behavioral knowledge. There's a lot of smart people in this world. And look, for me, I'm not smart enough to come up with certain models and stuff I use. I find stuff that I really like and resonate with, and I feel that I can implement and work with people really well. So for me, the biggest challenge we have in society is with that change, it's more the behavioral change that people need to focus on. If you can work through those character traits we spoke about, humility and work ethic and being smarter around people, understanding people better, you'll have a much better personal feeling, but you'll have a much better life generally, because people will want to be around you. They'll want to share their life with you. They'll want to be involved with you, and you can contribute really well to whatever's going on in your world.
Yeah. So
Thank
for
you
all
very
of our
much.
listeners right now, I can tell you right now, you need to go back and have another listen to this when it gets put up, because there was a lot of golden nuggets that were dropped in this interview. And Brendan I mean, I'm going to go back and have another listen, this time, not as an interviewer, but to listen and take notes. There's some really good value nuggets in here. Brendan, thank you very much.
Thank
Absolute
you
pleasure,
very much.
Eugene.
Christina,
Thank you.
over to you.
Thank you very much, Brendan. Thank you. And I'd like to say, dear viewers, if you would like to find out more about our project or to become our guest or a co-host as our lovely two men in the show, please visit our website, Allatraunites.com, where you would see the red button, join us. You can click on it, choose your own language. We have plenty of them there. Put the email down and just fill out a very short and easy form. And you can become the part of our team. So thank you once again. And I would like to say at the end that I would like to say that on December 20th, 2020, at 10 a.m. EST, a unique online conference, Creative Society United We Can, will be held in more than 12 languages. It will be live on ALLATRA TV, on ALLATRAunites.com, and all online platforms worldwide. Only we ourselves, people, can bring the Creative Society to life. Now it is important for every inhabitant of the planet to learn about this unifying idea. Changes begin with us and with the information we share with each other. So please share the information about this conference with everyone. And thanks to you, we, our children and next generations, will live in a society worthy of a human. So I just wanted to invite you all to this wonderful conference where we can share our ideas and, unite as humanity. So thank you once again. Thank you, Eugene, for being super wonderful co-host today. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you, Brandon, for being the most wonderful guest. And for, as Eugene said, I will listen through the interview again and put the notes down because I very much enjoyed what you said and agree with everything. And thank you all for watching us today, and see you in our next live broadcast. Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity, guys.